Good afternoon and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News First at 4. I'm Mark Hanrahan. We are starting with breaking news right now. Spokane police say an officer shot and killed a man in the Hilliard neighborhood after that man pointed a gun at the officer. It happened near the intersection of North Thor and East Garnett Avenue. That's about a block north of Cooper Elementary. KREM 2's Amanda Rowley is live at the scene right now. And Amanda, what's the latest?
Yeah, Mark, we're still learning details of what happened, but at this point we know once Spokane police officers arrived here on the scene, they started setting up an area that would be closed off to the public. Here's a look at what that scene looked like when we first got here earlier this afternoon. Spokane police say they saw a man walking out of a house and had what they believed a gun. Now, police say the suspect pointed the gun to the west, potentially towards a person, and that's when officers yelled at the suspect to drop the gun. That suspect then turned and pointed the gun at an officer. Police say that officer fired at least 2 rounds and the suspect died. Here's what Chief Craig Meidel said a little bit earlier today.
They actually came to the location to try to comfort him and help him through whatever he was going through. I also, again, this is very preliminary. The initial information is at that initial contact, these 2 individuals did get 1 gun away from him before the officers arrived.
Now, Sergeant Terry Pruniger confirms with us just a few moments ago that the officer had a body camera on and it was recording. Coming back out live here at this scene, since this is an officer involved shooting, the SEER team is on site investigating. I've seen a few detectives knocking on some doors, hoping to find some witnesses that can provide them information of what happened and what led up to this event. Of course, they ask you to call law enforcement if you have any information that you can help in their investigation. Reporting near the Esmeralda Golf Course, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
All right, Amanda, thank you very much. And we will continue to follow this story. We'll bring you updates as we get them right here and on KREM.com. And be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook for the latest updates on this case. Switching gears to weather now, it was another sunny and windy day across the inland northwest. Meteorologist Michelle Moss standing by in the Weather Center with how long this nice weather sticks around for, Michelle.
Looks like we're going to still have several more days of this great weather around with blue skies even into the weekend. Temperatures might be cooling down a little bit, though, for the weekend. But in the meantime, we're enjoying some pleasant seasonable temperatures. Satellite and radar picture shows no wet weather, no rain anywhere across the inland northwest. A few high clouds passing through, and that is about it. Temperatures aren't quite as warm as they were yesterday, but still pretty close to average, and a pleasant 54 in Spokane. Coeur d'Alene, Deer Park, and Sandpoint. It has made it back up into the 60s in Moses Lake, lower 60s in Pomeroy, and upper 50s in Lewiston. Here's a look at the next 12 hours. Pretty quiet weather through the evening as temperatures slip down into the 40s. We're looking at mostly clear skies overnight. Temperatures dropping down into the middle 30s. And here's a look at the next 3 days. Another sunny day for your Thursday. Temperatures in the mid 50s. Friday is going to be nice and mild and pretty windy again. We're looking at highs back in the lower 60s. Much cooler for Saturday. Partly cloudy skies. High temperatures only in the upper 40s. Lows in the lower 30s.
All right, Michelle, thank you very much. Spokane police arrested a 20-year-old St. Mary's man in connection to a kidnapping of a teenage girl in North Idaho. Police arrested Bradley Walters yesterday after someone recognized him from media reports. He is charged as a fugitive and obstructing an officer. Police say he had tried to run away during the arrest but didn't make it far. A search and rescue team is back in western Washington today looking for a missing Moses Lake hiker. Her family says crews are searching by ground and by air to find her. Rachel Lakaduck left for an overnight hike last week in Skagit County and hasn't been seen since. Fog, rain, and snow made rescue efforts difficult for days, and yesterday searchers reached a lookout where they were hoping to find the 28-year-old inside, but they say it appeared she'd never made it that far from the trail.
Yeah, you just got to be really careful. You got to know your limitations. You got to you got to know what your experience is, and you are alone, and cell phones probably don't work up that far. So I think that's probably, with the weather, it's just a whole bad combination of things.
According to a Facebook post from the missing woman's mom, crews still consider it a search and rescue mission. However, authorities say the chances of survival are slim. An I-90 construction project that some drivers say is long overdue is nearing completion. For the last year and a half, crews have been working on the I-90 bridge on Lake Coeur d'Alene near Wolf Lodge Bay. KREM 2's Taylor Vito spoke with construction crews and will tell us when that project will be done coming up in our 5 o'clock broadcast. In other news, the Spokane Regional Health District is seeing a spike in hepatitis A cases. A spokesperson says most cases are linked to homelessness and drug use. KREM 2's Whitney Ward is live in the studio tonight to tell us more about the spike in the cases. Whitney.
Hi, Mark. Yeah, as of today, doctors have diagnosed 47 patients with that disease. That's a huge jump compared to just 3 cases back in June. Health leaders are telling us that hepatitis A mostly affects people who are experiencing homelessness, so the risk to the general population is low. Hepatitis A, by the way, is preventable and treatable, but even so, the health district is encouraging people to get vaccinated. So back in July, the outbreak actually had local health agencies on alert as the numbers obviously tripled. At least 9 of the infected patients in Spokane did not have that vaccine, a trend they are seeing a lot more of in older generations, and that's because the vaccine just wasn't widely recommended till the early 2000s. One local health expert says the main cause for the outbreak is simply a lack of access to sanitation. She says adding more public bathrooms to the city could decrease those numbers, and access to more sanitation areas ultimately helps the entire community. Mark, back to you.
Put the bear in the cage.
I want you guys to justify it. I'm going to put it in the cage. Don't sit there and tell me what to do right this moment. I'm asking you to justify why I can't take it to the refugee.
So you're going to sit there and torture this bear?
I am not torturing this bear, sir. You are.
Well, a hunter in Idaho found an injured bear and took that bear home. He said he had plans to send it to a rehab center where it would not be euthanized, but he says that's when Idaho Fish and Game intervened with different plans. Joe Harris from our sister station in Boise was there when crews came to take the bear named Chewy.
This is Chewberica. He is an amazing animal.
Although this young black bear has been sleeping in Charles Erickson's garage, it doesn't live here.
The animal is half crippled in this back leg. Its left rear leg is, I don't know if it's broke or deformed.
Charles explains that he spotted the bear while hunting in Garden Valley. He says that it appeared to be injured and abandoned.
I don't know of any human being that has a conscience that would sit there and let it die instead of doing something to help it. So I just covered his head with my sweatshirt and I picked him up and I put him in the back of my pickup, drove down.
Since then, the bear, most often called Chewy by the Erickson family, has spent most of his time here in the garage.
I've just been nursing him back to health until I could take it to that place.
But the bear also did other things.
And he climbed the telephone pole and he walked around the yard.
While Charles was explaining his story, Idaho Fish and Game officers were just outside his house waiting to take the bear into their custody. Charles tells me, though, he never wanted them involved.
These guys are going to make the call whether to euthanize it or not, where the other rehabilitation center says that they don't euthanize.
Well, this is Wrigley. She's a 14-week-old German wirehair pointer.
Evan O'Neill with Idaho Fish and Game says that while they do appreciate people wanting to care for animals, they need to stick to pets, like dogs.
There's no circumstance where you can legally pick up a wild animal, take it home for whatever reason.
He says if people see an injured animal in the wild, they need to leave it alone.
Give us a call and tell us where he found it, where the bear was located, so that maybe we could look into it, versus what ended up ultimately happening.
Back in his garage, Charles reluctantly prepares himself to give the bear back to Idaho Fish and Game.
I know, buddy. I know you don't like this.
Put the bear in the cage.
I want you guys to justify it. I'm going to put it in the cage. Don't sit there and tell me what to do right this moment. I'm asking you to justify why I can't take it to the refugee.
So you're going to sit there and torture this bear?
I am not torturing this bear, sir. You are.
Thank you.
Don't say thank you to me. You're going to kill this animal, and it's going to die, and its blood's going to be on your hands.
To some national news now, the U.S. House passed a bill making animal cruelty a federal felony. The PACT Act, as it's called, prohibits extreme acts of cruelty, including crushing, burning, and drowning of an animal. The law also prohibits the creation and distribution of animal cruelty videos. Violators will receive a fine or a prison term of up to 7 years or both.
Early this morning, the government of Turkey informed my administration that they would be stopping combat and their offensive in Syria and making the ceasefire permanent.
U.S. forces are withdrawing from northern Syria, and now Turkey and Russia will patrol the border, pushing back Kurdish troops. President Donald Trump says it was time for U.S. troops to leave what he called a, quote, endless war. But on Capitol Hill, lawmakers held a hearing to investigate what some consider the U.S. betrayal of Kurdish fighters in Syria. American troops and Kurdish fighters battled ISIS for 5 years. Meantime, some of the U.S. troops that had been in Syria are now in Iraq, and they are expected to stay there for about a month.